On September 28, 2023, Epic Games CEO Tim Sweeney will send out an email to Epic employees saying that they'll be laying off around 16% of their employees, or around 830 people. According to Tim Sweeney, 2/3 of those laid off are people who are outside of core development, which I can only assume means video editors, marketing, artists, writers, and probably much more we don't know about. Even level designers have been hit. You may not know who Max Boyle is, but you definitely know the maps he designed, those being Little Leapers, Track Attack, Snowball Survival, Airtime, Gate Crash, and much more. Even veterans who've been with Fall Guys since its inception weren't safe. Mediatonic employees took to Twitter to let people know that they've been let go as a result of the layoff. I'm showing off some screenshots as I speak. Some of these folks were lead artists, narrative writers, people who deal with influencer marketing, people with tons of managerial experiences, video editors, and some of them were even level designers. You've probably already seen this post, but if you haven't, is this one made by Ed Fear, who would spell out the word decimation using Mediatonic's logo. Ed Fear was a director and writer on Murder by Numbers, a visual novel Mediatonic made in 2020. Yes, Mediatonic made other games as well. The reasoning for this layoff is the same as all other layoffs: cost cutting. According to the memo Tim Sweeney sent out, he said the following, quote, "For a while now, we've been spending way more money than we earn, investing in the next evolution of Epic and growing Fortnite as a metaverse-inspired ecosystem for creators. I'd long been optimistic that we could power through this transition without layoffs, but in retrospect, I see this was unrealistic." Let's back up a bit. For the folks confused by what Tim Sweeney meant by metaverse-inspired ecosystem for creators, is basically where Epic Games would pay creators to make islands, games, maps, whatever you want to call it, in Fortnite Creative, and they would give them a cut of 40% net revenue, and this would be a thing with the release of Fortnite Creative 2.0 on March 22nd, 2023. It uses the Unreal Editor, which is basically based on Unreal Engine 5, allowing players to import textures, create and animate models, bring in landscapes, the whole 9 yards. It's a game engine in a game engine, if that makes any sense. I will say I'm not very familiar with Fortnite. The last time I played it was in late 2018 and really only played a few games, so I might have missed a lot of things, but that's the general gist of it. As an outsider looking in, it's so odd seeing someone, especially a CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, obsess over the metaverse. I'll be honest, I forgot the metaverse was even a thing. I remember it being a trend a few years ago. I swear, man, I couldn't even look in the other direction without companies announcing their own metaverse. Even Facebook changed its name to Meta, and it was wasting billions of dollars on the metaverse, and it looked no better than VR chat that released like 10 years ago. Anyways, back to the memo made by Tim Sweeney. He also said the following, quote, "While Fortnite is starting to grow again, the growth is driven primarily by creator content with significant revenue sharing, and this is a lower margin business than we had when Fortnite Battle Royale took off and began Fortnite expansion. Success with the creator ecosystem is a great achievement, but it means a major structural change to our economics," end quote. That's what happens when you basically give 40% of your money away. When you think about that for longer than 2 seconds, it makes sense why they were losing boatloads of money. Before this, the only revenue sharing they offered was support a creator, which is a code that players can use in the Fortnite item shop and support their favorite content creators in the process. Epic Games would give creators a 5% cut, which is substantially less than the 40% they give out to eligible creators who use creative. And let's not forget how much of a cash burner the Epic Games Store turned out to be. Epic Games would give out free games and pay the developers of said games themselves, along with a very generous split to developers who would put their games on the Epic Games Store. Developers keep an astounding 88%, where Epic Games only takes 12%. Compare that to Steam taking 30% of developers' money. In 2021, IGN posted this article about how the Epic Games Store has not turned a profit and is actively losing money since it came out back in 2018. I purchased Fall Guys off Steam, so I just boot off the game from there. So I cannot imagine burning that much investor money on a storefront that is basically making no profit and probably will not make profit for a few more years, if it even makes profit at all. Anyways, apologies for that side tangent. If you scroll all the way down on the memo, you will see Tim Sweeney answer a question regarding Project Liberty, which is basically the lawsuit Epic was embroiled in regarding the Apple and Google App Store and the 30% cut they take on all sales. Epic would sidestep the app stores altogether, allowing players to purchase V-Bucks directly from them at a cheaper price than if they were to get it from the App Store. This move will subsequently get the app banned on both the Google and Apple app stores. Epic would then sue Apple sometime in 2020. This was a whole song and dance that I just don't have time to get into, but the amount of money they had to burn just in legal fees alone must have been astronomical. This also doesn't take into account Epic Games being fined by the Federal Trade Commission, or FTC, for child privacy and dark patterns violation, and that came out to an eye-watering $520 million. It will be split into two easy payments: $275 million for violating child COPPA laws, and where Epic would collect personal information on people below the age of 13 13 without parental consent, and $245 million is to be refunded back to players. Basically, Epic would employ something called dark patterns, in where due to the way the store is laid out and a variety of other tactics, it would make players unintentionally purchase something that they didn't even want. They also made it super difficult to get a refund back. This absolute dumpster fire, along with the Epic Game Store, Creative Mode 2.0, and overhiring during the 2020 pandemic, along with inflation, are some of the reasons why Epic Games ultimately decided to cut costs by firing 830 employees, or around 830 employees, excuse me. They would increase the price of V-Bucks back in July in countries like Canada and the United Kingdom. And it was right around the time they got fined with the FTC, funny enough. However, they would once again announce their increase in the price of V-Bucks in October 27th, or a month from now, in places like the United States, Turkey, Sweden, and a whole lot more. And also, what's funny about this is that Mediatonic would announce Showbucks would be increasing as well, and on the same date, October 27th. According to this IGN article, Fortnite in 2018 alone made $5.6 billion and $4.2 billion in 2019. That's $9 billion in 2 years. And they will make $5.1 billion in 2020. If they have to resort to laying off over 800 people, how much money were Epic Games just pissing away? Times like this remind me when then CEO of Nintendo, Satoru Iwata, would slash his paycheck by 50% so he wouldn't have to fire anyone. Also, Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto and others will cut their paychecks as well. For people who don't know, at the time, the Wii U was absolutely flopping. It was considered a failure. It only sold 13 million units in its lifespan. I don't know if I'm being incredibly naive, as I don't really have an understanding of businesses, especially multi-billion-dollar ones, but Tim Sweeney did not need to fire basically anybody. He could have just cut his paycheck even by a very small percentage and it would have made a huge difference. How much do you want to bet that by the end of the year, Tim Sweeney is going to get his executive bonus and his golden parachute and nothing will happen to any of the executives working at Epic? And the only people who are going to be affected are the people who lost their jobs, and also companies like Mediatonic who are going to have to all of a sudden deal with the workforce being slashed out of nowhere. How does this affect Fall Guys going forward? According to articles and tweets, it seems like Mediatonic got hit really bad by the layoffs. If you go over to the official Mediatonic website, you'll see that they have over 300 employees. Probably not anymore, but we currently don't have a concrete number as to how many employees Mediatonic got laid off. But if we're going by the statements floating online, it's an amount that would make it to where development of Fall Guys is going to be affected. And it sucks how this happened right as they released the Fall Force update or the 10.4 update. If I had to take a shot in the dark and guess how many Mediatonic employees got fired, I'd say it's 50, maybe 70. And with just Mediatonic alone, that would be 16% of Mediatonic staff getting laid off if 50 people got fired and 23% if 70% got the boot. I did the calculation based on if exactly 300 people worked at Mediatonic. Currently don't have much to go off since the website says over 300. Either way, losing nearly a quarter of your company will definitely hurt. Entire schedules, plans, workflows, and just everything will just need to be readjusted to compensate for the lack of people. According to Glassdoor reviews left by anonymous Mediatonic employees, they've been talking about how terrible the workplace environment has been, along with poor communication, micromanagement, and general mistreatment of employees. This review in particular highlights how Epic encourages crunch, how they've cut budgets for social media, no workplace transparency, poor management of projects, and having to ask if you're going to do things like write a novel, teach, and I wouldn't be surprised if starting a YouTube channel was a thing you had to ask approval for, and the rampant sexism and bullying from lead employees. Just horrible stuff. No matter how you feel about Fall Guys as a product, this should not be happening at any workplace. As someone who isn't very active in the social media sphere and hasn't been since 2016, I had no clue what was going on in the wider gaming industry. This just makes me incredibly sad and incredibly angry at the same time. Let's talk about the rumors and where people thought Epic Games shut down Mediatonic. You have pages like Dextro tweeting absolute nonsense like this, and over 7.6 million people have viewed this tweet according to the view counter. No idea how accurate that is, but wow, just no fact checking or waiting for more information. One of the things I like about the new Twitter or X.com as it's now called is the community notes that add context to tweets. It's just a lovely feature that fact checks posts like these. As a content creator, it's understandable you want to get the news out as fast as possible, especially if you're huge, but sometimes a little patience goes a long way. But what can you do? Later on, a spokesperson at Epic will give a statement to Video Games Chronicle or VGC regarding reports of Epic Games laying off all of Mediatonic. Quote, "This is false," a spokesperson said. "Mediatonic's work on Fall Guys continues to be a company priority. day, end quote. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it, that's a little vague, but it is confirmation that no, Mediatonic isn't being shut down and the game will receive updates and overpriced skins and all is right with the world. You know, before this video, I never really knew much about Epic Games, and I'll be honest, I still kinda don't. But all I know is that Epic Games choices are really affecting not only Fall Guys, but Rocket League and eventually Fortnite as well. Epic Games isn't the only company to announce layoffs. Meta or Facebook will lay off 10,000 employees. Microsoft laid off 10,000 employees as well. EA laid off 1,000. Unity laid off 600, and it just goes on and on. Just crazy times we live in. From what I can understand with my pea-sized brain is that these Silicon Valley types would basically just gather money through venture funds and investor money, and they would just spend like crazy. And the thing is that finally it's hitting them. We actually need to make money, and they just have no idea basically how to do that because they've just been burning money for so long. So one of the main ways they can do is just to cost cut, and especially during the pandemic where all of these social media companies and gaming companies were super successful because everyone was stuck home. So like, you know, let's just hire because, you know, we need more people. We're making tons of money now. In the gaming industry particularly, microtransactions, season passes, free-to-play games, all of that has basically been popularized and perfected by Epic Games in the hit game Fortnite. And if you look at Fall Guys, you would just see Fortnite Junior, Showbucks being their version of V-Bucks, the Fame Pass obviously being their version of the Battle Pass, and the biggest being Fall Guys Creative, which is basically named very similarly to Fortnite Creative. Although I will say, Fall Guys having a creative mode is basically perfect because Fall Guys is the type of game that actually benefits from having a creative mode. Although creative mode in Fall Guys is pretty limited, but it's very young. So definitely in the future, I could see it having tons of themes, tons of modes, tons of things. It will definitely get better. But in a game like Fortnite, I don't really know if creative mode makes sense. It is pretty cool to see a ton of the cool map codes and islands that people are making, but for Fall Guys, it just makes perfect sense to have a creative mode. I'm not knocking them for that. It just something that obviously I see similarity between Fortnite and Fall Guys. Either way, I hope the people who lost their jobs in Mediatonic can find new ones as soon as possible. And remember, the game is going to be affected due to the layoffs, so be a little patient as they try and sort things out. Thank you to our Max streamers for your support as always.